Composition is one of the most important things in filmmaking to create cinematic images. There are way more elements to composition, but I will tell you here my favorite 10 points for composition. But even more to this topic you will find later in the course. With these rules, you learn a powerful tool to tell your stories with more impact. All these rules are here to be broken, but you can't break the rules when you don't know them. Yes, of course, the cops will tell you something different, but in filmmaking that's the way to go. The first rule is the rule of thirds. There are 2 vertical and 2 horizontal lines that can be activated on most of the cameras. This grid creates 9 sections in your frame. The goal of this rule is to put the point of interests and important subjects on one of these lines. In case of landscapes, you will place the horizon on one of these 2 horizontal lines. It depends on what has more importance and on what the viewer should be focused on. Do you want to show the sky or what happens on the ground? When working with objects or people, the goal is to place them on one of these 2 vertical lines, and the eye should be placed on the top horizon line. Place it not on the bottom line because it looks awkward. Also, the way you place them is important, called lead or looking room. This means basically that this way what your talent is looking to should have more space than behind. Otherwise the picture looks strange and uncomfortable. Exactly, that is one of the rules that can be broken when it helps your story to create the feeling of discomfort or something is wrong. Therefore, you can break the leading room to enhance visually the feeling of discomfort. Also be aware of the headroom between the top of the head and the top of the frame. Don't give it too much or too less. In a close-up shot, it's better to cut off the top of the head instead of the bottom, because the hair isn't as important as the expressions you see in a face. Also in a close-up shot, place the eyes on the top horizontal line. These lines will also help you to see your framing better and avoid recording while your lines in the frame, especially the horizon, are not leveled. This will help you to get a more professional image. If you place a talent or an object in the middle of the frame, you should have a reason for that. If it is a talking headshot that talks and looks directly into the camera like this, or you want the full attention on the talent, then it makes sense to place them in the middle of the frame. Otherwise, when the person looks on one or the other side, it's better to give them more looking room. But the rule of thirds in general can be broken for unconventional framings. If you want to show something important above a talent, then place it like that what you want, because this rule is only a guideline. When you understand this rule and use it most of the time correctly, it can be broken for a reason, to make it more impactful and help to tell your story better. Be sure that you have a creative reason to break a rule. If you break it every time, that can create the feeling of a non-professional film at the end, so it doesn't come across as just bad framing. You have to know that most of the viewers are used to see subconsciously exactly all these rules in every movie, and most of the time it also helps to create a more pleasing image overall. Compare these 2 pictures, which looks more interesting to you. The second rule is straightforward to achieve. The only thing you have to do is to get closer to your subject. This means you should have a dominant subject in your image. Look at this image, for example. Tell me what you think the dominant subject is. That is one of the biggest problems I see in beginners footage. That doesn't mean you can't get a wide shot to show an environment, but you should force the viewer to see what you want that they see. What exactly do you want to tell with that picture? As soon as you use this more often, that will make your films way more interesting. Wide shots help to show an environment, but are also showing the place the way it is, not the way you see it. Try to stand out and get closer to details and actions to make the audience feel they're right there. Don't be lazy and capture everything from a distance, so you can't zoom in or get closer. This will also show more emotions from an actor. It creates also more intense feelings when you are very close instead of a wide shot, especially in an emotional or fast scene. What also helps to lead the eyes of the audience to your subject or leading lines. That is a psychological proof effect that your eyes will recognize the lines so fast that you automatically end up on the point that the lines lead to. I always look out to get some leading lines in my footage. Try to see and use lines in your image as well. That will also have the side effect that you get a more 3D feeling in your image. That brings me to the next point. Depth will help you to get a more 3-dimensional looking picture. It's overall a more interesting picture compared to a flat image. The first thing to understand is how you can create depth. One way is by using layers in your image. A foreground in front of your subject and a background. As you see, the image looks more interesting with depth than without. As already said, leading lines will also help you to get more depth, because it will create the type of foreground in the image. Another way is to use and shape your light. This topic will be covered in a separate video in the lighting section. Also, the focal length can help to create more depth, as you already learned. A longer focal length has a shallower depth of field, which ends up in an image with more depth. As you see in this example, one is recorded with the 50mm and the other with the 24mm. Which picture looks more flattering to you? The last point to create more depth is when you shoot with an open aperture. This way you will get less shallow depth of field, which also helps to create more depth. I personally like the look when shooting with an open aperture, but not in every case. Exactly that is the next point, which is the background. You know already the fact that an open aperture creates more depth and the picture looks more cinematic. This is also the point why every smartphone manufacturer wants to apply artificial background blur to the footage. Important here for you to understand is to use it wisely. A blurry background is maybe not in every shot the ideal solution. Sometimes it happens something in the background, or there is a beautiful landscape that you want to show. Also, sharp background with a good set design will create more depth. Again, it's all about what you want to tell. I for myself love the look of shooting wide open too, but it's important that you don't overuse it. Another very useful rule is to have a consistent viewpoint throughout your film. The human eye is lazy and loves to relax with videos. That means that your eyes have not to reorientate in each new shot of a movie or commercial. If your viewpoint or the center of your subject is most of the shots from a scene in the middle of the frame or on one of the lines from the rule of thirds, then the eyes are relatively relaxed and concentrated on your subject. This fact will support the calm scene very good, but if the viewpoint is in every shot somewhere else, what do you feel about that? Does that also support calm scene? Not really. Watch an action movie and pay attention to where the viewpoints are in every single shot. If you want to show a calm scene but your viewpoints are all over the place, that can create a very awkward feeling. But if you want to create more stress or an uncomfortable feeling in your audience, then use exactly this rule to your advantage. This rule can be very powerful if you use your eye, because many things happen subconsciously while you watch a movie. Some filmmakers or directors know that and use it to their advantage. The next point is the balance of the frame, which means the balance in an image. Avoid overloading one side with stuff and the other stays empty, which might be part of set design. This fact is essential in any shot. For product shots and on shots outside, it's possible to get an unbalanced image. If you take an eye on that, you will get a more pleasing image. But also this can be used to create a sense of emptiness if you have nothing at all on both sides on the image, or to show when a character falls out of his or her balance in a mental sense. In such a case, you can have an unbalanced image to show that something is out of balance, and maybe break the rule of thirds on top to enhance this effect even more. The next point is nothing you must use in every shot, but it can make your image more interesting. This point is symmetry. That means when your left side of the image is exactly the same as the right part of the image, or the top the same as the bottom. Also, reflections in the water can create a symmetrical image. In some cases it makes more sense to place a horizontal line in the middle of the frame to get a symmetrical looking image, instead of using the rule of thirds. So keep your eyes open and frame accordingly if you have the chance for it and like the framing more than the other one. Asymmetry, on the other hand, can show unbalance. The second last point is to use patterns, shapes, colors or frames in your footage to create a more interesting picture overall. The same similarity in different shots create a very nice match between each shot. Many well-known movies use this technique to follow similar framing patterns throughout the film, also through staging and blocking, which we talk about in another video. Especially for fast cuts, this is a way to make it look smoother. The shots will match better together if you have many of the same shapes, patterns or color in them. Another example is if you film an abstract pattern on a wall, for example. Every time someone walks into frame, the pattern gets broken and the point of interest is automatically on the new subject. Try it by yourself, it's worth it. The last of these 10 rules for composition is very simple. Break the rules. Now you know the most important composition rules and how they affect your visuals and your audience feelings. Break it if you have a reason for that, to create your own visual language, or try to stick to the rules. I break it if it helps to tell the story better, otherwise I stick to it because some of the rules are here for a reason. It helps to make the visuals more pleasing and comfortable to watch. If you hold most of the time to these rules, the stronger the effect when you break them. Without any of these rules in mind, the films are mostly strange to watch, so step up your work and try it for yourself. Pick your camera and use all of these rules, and your next video will look different as before. If you learned something, subscribe, and now let's create.